Welcome to the Tunepact Podcast. I'm your host, the punk rock pop, Lee Pierce. And welcome back for our second part of Working as a Hired Gun with Mike Martin. Mike, thanks for sticking around and doing this with us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So what advice do you have for musicians that are thinking about going the hired gun route, whether it's touring musician or studio work?
There's so many things, I would definitely say, be very cognizant of your relationships, because you definitely want to be a reliable, indispensable person. That's in my experience. That's what gets you the call, is being somebody who is fun, is a good hang, but also super responsible and cares about the people that you're working for. Just having that reliability really helps with because it is a business of who do you know. So those kinds of recommendations are invaluable. You can't really put a price on that stuff.
Yeah, I was just speaking with someone about that, and it's not even just who you know, it's who knows you. Yeah. Because you might have worked with 20 people, but you might not be remarkable and nobody remembers you, or they might not remember you in a good way. So like you said, the way you carry yourself as a person and the way that you network is definitely important.
Yeah, and here these last several years, especially in the internet age, fortunately, because of social media and everybody using platforms to blog their own stuff, like for guitar players, I follow Pete Thorne, who played guitar in Chris Cornell's band, and he toured with Don Henley and Melissa Etheridge, and he's on tour playing guitar with Steve Vai and Joe Satriani right now. His website is great. His YouTube channel is great, and he reviews all kinds of gear. And you could tell why, like from a player standpoint, why people want to hire him, because he's an incredible guitar player, but also his demeanor and his professionalism and his ability to communicate. You really get at least I do, I get a strong sense of Pete is just a great guy. He's a good hang, he's knowledgeable, but he's somebody that is engaging to be around, that you kind of want to be around. He just has a really warm demeanor that's very professional and very personable at the same time. And I think that's why he continues to get call after call after call after call. Again, I know we mentioned earlier, being a good player is understood because everybody's great at it, but these other qualities of just being a solid person, don't over promise and under deliver, right? Over deliver at every opportunity. And I think that goes a long way. And it's a rough business. We definitely, sometimes we get underpaid. Sometimes we don't get paid. Sometimes we get taken advantage of. So, all of that stuff happens, but you've got to know who you are, and you've got to be, really solid and resolute with yourself. As I am not going to manipulate people for my advantage. I am not going to usurp a situation to my advantage and take away an opportunity from someone else. I want to position myself as best as I can to get the best situation to be able to capitalize on the opportunities that are afforded me, because it's competitive out there. There's so many great musicians out there. So be ready to go to work and go to bat for your position, as it were. But at the same time, don't be sneaky, don't be nefarious, don't be that person who would step on somebody else to get in a better position, because that may help you on the way up, and you may think, okay, well, I had to do some things I'm not really proud of to get to where I need to be, but I deserve to be there. But all those people that you step on the way up, you're going to see them on the way down, because we're all coming down. And how you've treated people, they're going to remember that. People remember how you make them feel. And if you were that guy who has just always been in it for yourself, as you're on the descent, people will cling to your garments when you're ascending, because they want to get into a better position too. But on the way down, sometimes, especially if people think you're a jerk, they're not going to mourn your loss of status in any way, shape, or form. They're going to be glad to see you go. So be a good person, help the people that you can, have your boundaries and be healthy with all that stuff. But just sticking to principles of like, you want to be a good person and true to yourself. And I find that for me, that means, really understanding positions with people and being at service and all of that stuff. So I think that helps, because everything else is sort of like, it's thrown to just the odds of karma and everything else in the world. Like, you don't know, like I've been passed over and passed over and passed over for so many things that I thought, man, this is going to be super great. And like, those things just don't happen. You can't be bitter about those things. You can't, moan about the things that fell apart, or, the gigs that didn't pay, or the things that you over prepared for and then they got canceled, or whatever. Things happen along the way, and keeping a positive disposition of gratitude. Like, it's hard to say, man, just be happy with what you got. I don't, happiness is a fleeting thing, but gratitude is something we can carry with us in everything. So, it doesn't matter who hires me. I treat them like they are the artist at all times, and that is the best thing you can do for your resume, is care about the artist that has hired you. Like, I play for a corporate band, and I treat the corporate band and my music director like, you're the artist. If you're asking me to do a thing, like, I'm going to support you, like this is Madison Square Garden, and this is your Elton John or whoever has hired me. Like, I treat it with the maximum respect to meet artists where they are. I recently did a country gig on the 4th of July, and had to come in at the very last minute. Like, in less than 24 hours, I agreed to a gig, learned a set, rehearsed, did a whole show. Like, it was a whirlwind, and it just kind of happened. And, to get the recommendation, like, last minute, who can we get for a gig like that with an artist? And he's a Nashville artist. Like, they didn't just need somebody to stand there and look like they played guitar. Like, he needed me to do some work. Being willing to go over and above and be like, all right, I guess I'm not going to sleep, but I'm going to get this done. And like, with all the respect for them being an artist, and for me as well. And I would recommend this to anybody who is looking to get into the hired gun side of business. Do front your own band, even if it's just a jazz trio that plays, cigar bars, or a blues band, or something else. Like, get involved in the business on that side of things where you are hiring people as well, especially if you have the opportunity to write some of your own music and present that stuff. Some of the best guidance that I get in what I want to do is I'm stepping into a role with an artist that's hiring me on for, whether it's a recording or a show or a tour, is knowing what I need when I hire people, and the kind of work ethic that I expect from people, and also the acumen of the kind of band leader that I want to work under. Because I've worked with some band leaders who are, maybe they're a little more direct, maybe they're a little curt in the way they give instruction. They're not a lot of hand-holding and all that stuff. And that's fine. Like, you're not necessarily there to do a job of, like, let's be cuddle buddies. It's a job. And to a certain degree, you are swinging a hammer. But then there's other times I've worked with band leaders who have been grumpy. And whatever they're going through in their life, and, like, you still have to have a professional demeanor, and, like, oh, I can't argue with this person. Like, they're still the band leader. So if this is the culture that they create, I will do this job with the best amount of deference that I can do for the artist that has hired me to do this job. And when it no longer suits me to be in an uncomfortable situation, to professionally leave the situation. So understanding what it's like to be under somebody who has difficulty regulating their own anger issues or frustration, excuse me, and how that can carry over into their band leading style. Like, knowing that when you're hiring people, you're in a leadership position. Like, you set the tone for inspiring people, because you want to get the best work from people, because you know what it feels like when an artist is inviting you to give them your best. It's a really wonderful exchange, and it makes for wonderful experiences in music. So knowing that stuff and how that can feel when you're in that position of authority, and what you're wanting to, how you're wanting to inspire the people that you're hiring and get that stuff, for good, bad, or indifferent. Some people surprise you and they give you way more than you thought you were even looking for. That's amazing. And then sometimes, people meet you where they are, and maybe they're overextended, and you needed a bass player at the last minute, and they didn't have 24 hours to learn your stuff. So they're literally coming in with stuff scratched down on a notebook paper, like, I'm going to get through this, and like respecting that as like the best that they could possibly give you, and like always giving everybody that platform, that whoever I hire, I look at them as whatever they give me, this is the best that they can give me, and I appreciate it with that level of gratitude. Even if it's not what I was hoping for, if it's not what I was looking for, having grace for that stuff, because you don't know why. Maybe they've had a tragedy in the family, maybe there's a financial crisis going on, or illness, or something else that professionally you don't just walk in and start going, here are all the problems in my life that now I want to put on you as the band leader, so I'd excuses why I'm not showing up 100%. You just imagine everybody's going through stuff. Like, we could probably do another whole episode on my mental health stuff and my journey with trying to figure out my depressive issues and things like that, and like not carrying that into a working environment. Like, you have to acknowledge that you have this stuff, but when you see that stuff in people, like having grace for them hopefully helps us have grace for ourselves when we're not at our best, but also then when we're working for an artist and we recognize the things in ourselves that we need to have grace for, not letting that necessarily bleed over into a professional situation, but also, not being a non-communication standoffish person either, because like that's been a thing. Like when I'm feeling really down, like, and not just in professional situations, like I've done this in my personal life with people that I love very much, that they need me to show up, and I'm in a terrible place, and I don't want to vomit my emotional dysregulation all over them, so I clam up, because I am a bit of an introvert, because I just don't want to put that on anybody, because it's like it feels like it's too much for me to carry, and that obviously people care about you, and like they take that personally. They're like, why can't you share that stuff, and so on and so forth. So like remembering that you are a human being in this stuff, like that kind of standoffishness, like as much as I know it's been to the detriment in my personal life with people that I love, to the same effect when you're working with people, that's also part of that, like being a good hang. It doesn't have to be like you've got all the jokes and all of that stuff and witty stories, but just not being so clammed up that you can't be in the moment with the people that you're with. It's a difficult thing with music, especially because it is personal, right? Like we're inviting to share our art, which is our heart and our soul, with other musicians, to carry that, to present it to an audience. It's not exactly like being a carpenter, where you show up on a job site, you know what the job is today, or landscaping, you know what the job is today, and you show up and it's physical, and you can be inside your head, and you got your earplugs in, and you're cutting acres of grass, and you're trimming acres of bushes, and whatever you're doing, but at least you're sweating it out along the way. Like nobody's expecting you to have a vulnerable conversation while you're cutting grass or swinging a hammer or climbing a ladder. There's something about those kinds of jobs where you can kind of separate that part of your being from your work. And that's kind of why I took 10 years off as well. Like I just wanted to work for a bit, because I was having some trouble with that stuff in my own life, and it was getting way too personal in my professional music career, to a point where like I want to be emotional. I feel like I'm an emotional artist, and I want to resonate truly, honestly, really. I don't want to feign heartbreak. I don't want to feign anxiety. I don't want to feign compassion and love and joy and hate and all of those emotional things. Like art is my opportunity to be real honest with it and really work through it. And then working with other musicians to bring that into being, like that's a lot of trust, because they're not in my head. They're not having the same experience, but they're bringing their life experience to it as well. It's a whole lot of stuff. So just being aware that everybody's a human being and dealing with all of that stuff, again, we're like, that's also treating every person that I work with and every band that I work with, it's like, you're the artist. I don't care what level of strata. You could be Chris Jericho, You could be Stuck Mojo. You could be, a blues band in Atlanta, Georgia that's still trying to get their leg up. It doesn't matter. Honoring and showing all deference to the art that they're presenting to the best of my ability, because this is somebody else's emotional art that they're as a human being wanting to express. And of course, like, we're trying to make a living with this stuff, but it's really hard when your heart is on your sleeve. Sometimes it's easier to just go push a lawnmower or swing a hammer, because I could be a mess, and like 8-9 hours into a day, like, I got something out. But in music, like, you don't always get that out, because like you're putting all of that stuff just under the surface of the skin. So you're riding this very delicate balance of like, I could fall apart at any time. And I've done gigs where I've just started crying uncontrollably because you're in the moment, and that the magic is happening. The band is connecting on a level, and like emotions are lining up, and heart chakras, or whatever you think about with all that stuff. But there's a quantum connection, and when the band does that, like, there's an elevation where, like, man, it's a dopamine hit when you feel that. But then when the audience is feeding into that as well, and they're feeding off of that as well, and that there's a whole room of people having a communal experience, it's one of the most incredible things to share that emotional thing. Like, it's overwhelming sometimes when that happens. Just being prepared to, that's a big thing. You got to be able to play, but you got to be a human being. You've got to have boundaries, but you've also got to be a little vulnerable out there, because like, that's going to help you tap in with the artist that you're playing. Like, if there's a sincerity to the music that they're playing, find a way to identify with that. It's not all that different from what a professional actor needs to do. The best actors that I know, they don't pretend. Like, they do that Stanislavski method acting where they become. And that's how they tap into whatever character that they're portraying. They find that bit of that character inside themselves, which why it's like, Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger talking about playing the Joker. Like, it's a cartoon character, but like, to really embody that kind of a crazy character requires being willing to go to places in your head that are, pretty dark. Or Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. Like, what kind of a character is that, and what does that take you to? Like, not only the physical change that he took on, he got in crazy shape. Like, that was right after he played Al Capone, where he put on a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
Like, that's an incredible commitment to the role, and like being able to offer that to the artist as well. Not to upstage or to like put too much of a light on yourself, but like put them in that light to where they get to be transportive and transfigurative in the way that they are wanting to be as an artist. I think if you can find that stuff, people will really enjoy making art with you. The rest of the other things, like if you have travel anxiety, which I have, work on it. Like, it's worth working on it. Like, I have a fear of public restrooms, and like, we're constantly traveling. Like, I've had to find ways as an obsessive compulsive person to deal with airports and public restrooms, and like, I carry cleaning kits and stuff with me so that I could just do things that human beings need to do on a day-to-day basis. You don't think about that when you go to music school. Like, oh man, there's going to be a point where I'm going to be in a place where I'm not going to want to touch stuff, and I'm going to need to touch stuff, and I'm probably going to have a panic attack. Like, there was no class for that in college. Like, none of my teachers talked to me about that stuff. You find out, and then you realize I'm kind of freaking out about this stuff, and then you realize people are picking up on the fact that I'm freaking out. Well, I can't freak out. Like, of the two things, like, I don't want to deal with that stuff, but I absolutely can't freak out, because then, they'll never hire me for another tour, because they'll be like, this is too much. Mike can't get on an airplane because, like, he has travel anxiety. So finding ways to get over that. On the one hand, I will say, like, it's completely surmountable. I've done it, and I love traveling, and I always have loved traveling. But having to work through that stuff, like, that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going, and all the other psychological, mental challenges and emotional challenges that I have, they're harder when they're interpersonal. But they're all still like, I'm still just dealing with me, and if I know that, as uncomfortable as I was, like literally having physical reactions to having to go to a public toilet, crazy way for the conversation to turn, but knowing that I could find a way to deal with that and really love touring, really love traveling, it gives me the greatest hope for, if you have discourse in your relationships and your friendships and your family, that if you have to do some personal work, I feel like, man, it's possible. It's hard, but it's possible, and it can be just as gratifying on the other side of, like, now I can travel where I'm aware of those things. But some of it is just the fear of the unknown, right? Like, just being willing to just work through stuff. Like, and I find this as a music teacher as well. Like, you're not expected as a hired gun to be a psychiatrist to people that you work with, but it will help you to study some psychology. And not like TikTok pop psychology, like everybody that disagrees with me is a narcissist psychology, because that doesn't get you anywhere. That just keeps you standoffish and apart from people. But, the actual compassionate psychology of, hey, I know a little bit about myself and what my hang-ups are, so I can imagine everybody has their own stuff, and you just hold space for people. You don't have to acknowledge it. You don't have to feed into unhealthy behaviors and all of that stuff. But that awareness will help you in situations where, like musicians, we're all, every artist I know, and I am so blessed in this life to know incredible guitar players, composers, producers, mix engineers, drummers, musicians, actors, writers, artists, people that work on movies, people that paint their own personal art, people that sculpt and things like that. And like everybody's drawn to the arts because we're struggling with stuff, and there's a way that we can show up for ourselves through that process. There's a way of our working through stuff, and being aware that you're working with people who are in some other point along the way of their own journey with that stuff. Some people are very adept, some people are very self-aware, and they can become mentors to you. And I've been so blessed to have some really well-regulated mentors who, they didn't have easy lives. They may have an aura of like, man, I feel really warm and comfortable around this person. But the more you get to know them, it's like, man, they got the shit kicked out of them when they were kids too. Like they had a lot to overcome, or maybe problems with their family because parents divorced or lost a sibling when they were young, or who knows what. It humanizes people. So being able to recognize that, not just that some people are great at it and some people are really crap at it. Like, I don't think it's a black or white way of looking at the world. Like, I really think it's better to look at, like, we're all human beings and we're all on our own journey of self-awareness. And the irony of that self-awareness is it kind of involves us being involved with people intimately. We have to get to know them. We have to be vulnerable with them, and we have to allow them to be vulnerable with us. And sometimes that's scary because you get rejected for things. But we're all on that journey of how well are we handling all of that stuff to, figure out where I am on the journey, or at least how far away from where I'm headed, and then seeing other people along the way, like not judging yourself, like as they're further along with their healing journey, or they're further behind you, or you're not keeping up, or whatever. Just having grace for all, because everybody's dealing with something, no matter how self-aware they are, or they may even appear to be not very self-aware about that stuff. But just being aware that wherever somebody is with that stuff, they are dealing with things. Everybody has pain. Everybody has lost people. People that they love. They've lost relationships. All manner of things. They've stumbled in their career and had to rebuild. Like, I'm in a rebuilding phase now. Like, it's been a long process of that stuff. Being graceful about that, and trying not to be bitter about opportunities that I've passed up because I needed to sit down for a minute, things like that. Again, I go on these tangents, but I think that's really important. Just as somebody that gets hired, just knowing that this is a more emotional thing than, like, if you're on a construction crew, you also don't want to be a jerk there. Even if you are just swinging a hammer or throwing bales of pine straw, whatever you're doing, like, you still want to show up as a decent human being and be reliable and safe for people to work with and all of that stuff. It just seems to be in the arts that there's a lot more opportunity for people to be defensive, people to be, coming from a place of hurt or whatever because they're expressing their art and they're trying to be vulnerable. And it's a really weird place to be in this commerce of being vulnerable. In another way, it also kind of makes you defensive because it's like, I kind of want everybody to see my heart is on my sleeve. But like, you don't want it to be a performative thing of like, hey guys, look, I'm really sensitive. Like, look, I'm really bleeding over here. I've really bled for myself. Like, don't put on a show. Just be a real person,
Well, I think with being an outside contractor, like you said, in any industry, not just the entertainment industry, in any industry, whether you're working in an office, on a construction site, or in a studio, if you're an outside contractor, you need to go in thinking, I'm going to be the best background character I can be. 100%. And everyone you talk to, treat them like they're the most important person in the room. Because they freaking better be. Because if you don't treat them that way, they're going to see that, and you're not going to be there the next day. And when you treat people like they're the most important person in the room when you talk to them, they tell you everything about themselves, even stuff you don't want to hear. And once you know what people are about, they're easier to understand, and especially on a creative level, if you know where someone's coming from, it's way easier to work with.
Absolutely. Like it's a tapestry for sure. And just being open. Like, what a crazy thing, man. Like, it seems like everything in life, whether it's your romantic relationships, your family, your friendships, your professional day job relationships, or your art, like, it seems like the overarching life lesson that we all pass through multiple times in our lives is like the willingness to be open to what everybody else is dealing with, so that we can have compassion and understanding, because that's also partly how we get to understand ourselves a little bit better. And in that, then we can actually do stuff together. Like, hopefully families will be better. Because like, there's so much challenges to everything. Not everything's going to be a honeymoon. I mean, when there is a honeymoon phase, man, whether it's a job or it's with your romantic partner, like, lean into that, because it's glorious and it's beautiful. But there are going to be a lot of days where it's like something didn't get done, or something didn't get said the way that felt good to you, or you didn't say something that feels good to other people. And like, you got to own that stuff and be open to the possibility of, like, in some ways, like, you have to have principles, but you also have to be open to every possibility. And the number one possibility that I always have to try to put in front of myself is, maybe you're wrong. Like, I might be really motivated to do a thing, but like, if I'm going to be open to the possibilities of how to really deal with any situation, like, the first one is like, what if I'm just completely wrong about this? What if my instincts, my intuition, my expectations are all like just setting me up for failure with this? How can I set myself up for success if I have to abandon a bit of my ego along the way to get on the right side of things? Then to be open to that as well, like, not in a fake it until you make it kind of thing, but just in a vulnerable kind of way, to just like, with umbrage, just like, take it. All right. So, Mike, let's wrap it up here. So, what do you got coming up? Well, there's a lot of things that I am absolutely lining up. As I've said, like, it's been 10 years since I've released any music on my own. And so much has happened personally in that time period. But also, like, there were moments where I didn't expect to take this much time off from my own music. Like, fortunately, I've continued to get hired by bands. So I've, like, even though I needed to take a mental health step back from a lot of things, because I was in a very unhealthy place with, myself, and even my approach to my career. Like, I recognized that, all of the motivation that got me to practice a whole lot when I was young was also an escape trajectory from things that I wanted to get out of in childhood. And it's wonderful that it's become my career, but there are some things that I don't need music to be for me anymore that really served me when I was young. And like, I needed to put myself in a bubble where I could believe in myself, because like, I grew up in a town where everybody was into sports, and I'm terrible at sports. So like, I had friends in school, and I tried to do stuff when I was hanging out with them, but when they were, when whatever sport was in season, they're playing baseball, they're playing football, they're playing hockey, they're doing all the things. Basketball was really popular in New England. Like, I couldn't join those teams because I was terrible at that stuff. So I can go and support that stuff, but I'm not really that interested in sports either. I just loved my friends. So even being friendly with everybody left me with an awful lot of time to myself of like, I'm interested. And everybody loves the guitar, but it seemed like for me I was kind of in a bubble because I have an older brother, and so I knew everybody else's older brothers. So I really felt like the kid in all of that stuff. So I was the young kid that got into guitar and like just kept my head down, and while everybody else went off and like they got to talk to girls and stuff, I stayed home and practiced and practiced and practiced. And like while all of that stuff was really good for my work ethic, there was also an unhealthy, it's hard to say that, unhealthy coping mechanism, survival mechanism that I've carried into my adult life that has not helped me. It's been good for, in some ways, with my career, but in my personal relationships with friends and everything and family, it's been difficult because it's been like every time there's too much stuff in my face, I go hide. I go back into my bubble just like I did when I was 12, and I stay there. So I've tried to keep finding ways of dipping back into my career as an independent artist. So like at the start of this, I released my last single, Wherever You Are, as sort of a precursor to this monolith record called The Drive album. And that was the record that I started wanting to do for Vi's label. And it ballooned into 20 compositions. It's over 2 hours of music. It's all programmatic. It's like this very concept album of just my biography, I guess, is a way of looking at it. Everything's so personal that you're right, but very specifically with that. And it just got overwhelming. I had a lot of really big ambitions with that, just with the artwork that I was working to pull the whole thing together, because I had this vision of this double gatefold album with like all this really beautiful artwork that I was having one of my favorite artists starting to work on for each individual composition. Like I really wanted it to be the embodiment of all this stuff, and it got to be too much at a time when I thought it was going to be a good thing to work through the things that I was going through that work. And what I ended up discovering was like, no, I actually need to stop doing this and actually just deal with myself as a person. And that started a journey there. So since COVID, obviously the world has changed. Like so much has changed with social media and independent artistry and how to promote your work. My hope had been release that song and that'll help promote the Drive album. And none of that worked out, clearly. So now that's kind of where I am now. I just released today, as a matter of fact, that we're filming this.
Sweet. Best 5 minutes of my week. I love that track. It's absolutely incredible.
Thank you, brother.
I've been waiting a while for that one.
Man, me too. It's kind of the thing where when I started on this independent artist journey, my thought was kind of, let me just start releasing a stream of singles, because I know people who've gotten some really good traction doing that stuff. My old band Fozzy, Jericho's band, like they're doing stuff now where they just focus on a single and then they promote a tour around that. And it kind of makes sense. If you think about the traditional album cycle as it was, you do an album. If you're lucky, you get one single off of the record that really gets some traction. It becomes a part of your live set, and then you move into the next album cycle. And you end up with maybe 10 tracks on a record, but maybe only 1 or 2 songs really gets good service, even if you have great affection for the whole album. But then you're expected to just keep churning out albums of a lot of music that you really love that just doesn't really get a chance. And since radio isn't what it used to be and stuff now, like it's just changed. Same with album sales too. It's more about the streaming and getting the singles out there, which I love that. I so rarely, if I listen to something all the way through, it's because I put it on. It's on vinyl on the record player. In other words, I mean, our brains are just trained to, well, let's skip to the next song. So I mean, I think it's great that singles are getting pushed more now, because it's a great way, because now you'll see a 10-song album and they release 5 singles. Well, that's awesome. You got a pretty good chance you're going to like the other songs on the album, because there's not a lot of album sales. It's about streams and stuff like that now. Yeah. So that's kind of the move forward. This was starting as a series of like I'm still in a season where I'm putting the Drive album little further down the road before I jump back into trying to finish that, because like it's too big of a vision. I want to adhere to what I really envisioned for that stuff. So like everything that was on the table when I started working on it is still on the table, and I really want to see that through artistically, because it's pretty compelling to me. And I think as artists we want to be, really true to ourselves with the things that we're interested in, and all of that stuff is part and parcel to the presentation of that music. It's not just the individual singles. Like it may end up being, rather than releasing 2 hours of music all at a shot, because that's a lot to ask in this day and age where people don't have 2 hours to sit and listen to a record. I may break that up into a series of EPs that will culminate in the double gatefold vinyl presentation of the whole thing. I'm trying to get my head around that. I'm feeling pretty good about that possibility.
That would be, as the marketing guy and someone that works at a label, that's the type of stuff, as a music fan too, I love seeing that. Because first of all, EPs are great. I need to do an episode just about EPs versus LPs, because some of my favorite music of all time came off EPs, because that allows a musician, whether it's a solo or an established band. Usually it's an EP because it's not quite their normal brand. And, you can't get a full album out of this. It's something that's not even a side project. It's the same people, but it gives you a new kind of a peek behind the scenes, a new version of something that you're used to seeing, but maybe not from that particular artist. So doing EPs and then combining it into another, the packaging opportunities, you've got great ideas there.
Yeah, so this Learning to Sleep is the first single from when I started to decide what I was going to do right now. I've just looked through the rest of my writing to see, like, well, what singles do I have potentially that, like, these aren't already slated for an album concept thing? Because, like, every time I start working on a thing, like, it becomes like, okay, well, here's a whole format. Like, there's an album or /EP project coming up that I believe it's just going to be called Numbers. And every piece associated with that has something to do with mathematics and a little bit of just like the seasons, because there is a mathematical component to just the way the earth turns and all of that business. So like, I don't want to separate any of those things. And as I put all these tunes together, and some of them are songs that I've had around for a while that have just been looking for a place to land, and some of them are brand new compositions that I've just started working on this year for this. Because once I started pulling tunes together, I started going, hey, now these are all pretty good singles, but they kind of hang together as well. Like as I'm looking at it, I'm finding that there is sort of a stream of consciousness similarity, and some of it obviously is just because I'm the writer and I'm doing all of this independently. So like there's a thread that needles its way through all of these things. So I've been on the fence of, like, it started out as being a stream of singles, but then maybe I was like, let's do a couple singles and maybe there's an album at the end of this. So Learning to Sleep is sort of the prima facie proof of concept. How do I start navigating this level of the music industry in my career and just where I am with it, with several goals. The goal is to get back out performing and touring as an artist, and even more possibly, doing that as myself, as the instrumental guitar artist, which is that's a tough sell. It's a tough niche market to do it. But at this stage of the game and my age, like having something that I know no matter what I get hired to do, that I have a kernel business that keeps me writing, keeps me performing, keeps me engaged with the things that I love about playing the guitar. So I'm kind of using Learning to Sleep as the ability to do a little bit of funding for the rest of this recording project, because COVID kind of wiped out all of my finances, as it did so many artists, because none of us could play. A lot of us, I didn't do a GoFundMe or anything to try to survive the pandemic. I did the other thing, which I thought was safe at the time, thinking we're going to bounce back at the end of this. Like, so I'll just live off my credit card. Yeah, and then my work has not come back as full-time as I would like. Like, I could work more, but there's a lot of very low-paying work out there that's not helping with any of that stuff. So this is kind of a way to get back into, how do I fund these albums, recording them myself in my home studio. Like I can shoulder a lot of those costs myself, just being able to have my own home studio, which is great. But I hire musicians like Sean O'Rourke to play drums on stuff. Like he gets paid. He absolutely gets paid.
What you're doing with the singles, I think nowadays, like we said, there's not a whole lot of physical copies of albums anymore. But people still do your album release because it's what the industry's done since it's been an industry.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing with the singles is a really great idea because it gives you funding, and you can just keep releasing singles. You can turn those singles into an EP. You can turn those singles into an LP. You can turn those singles into your double gatefold. It gives you the little crumbs to sweep into whatever pile you want. You're giving yourself ingredients, and you can make whatever you want with it. So
really
that's a
in a
really
beautiful
smart way
place.
of doing it.
Yeah, like I've been looking at everything that everybody's doing. Of course, that's one of the great things about the internet is everybody's talking loudly about what they're trying to do. Like we're in an attention economy with the internet, and along the way, next year is the 20th anniversary of 205. So the plan is to celebrate the 20th anniversary of that next year. Is to do a vinyl release. I had always intended to do a vinyl release of that, so I'm going to do that for next year. So that's coming up. So in looking at companies that make vinyl, I have discovered that there are some smaller companies out there that are doing things. I forget the name of the company. I just saw it the other day. They offer it's almost a print-on-demand vinyl service where they're saying, like, if you have a single, essentially they will press it on either side of a single vinyl pressing, and you have a physical product of vinyl to sell to people. And I thought, well, man, that's great. So I'm considering maybe doing that for Learning to Sleep as well. And rather than do it on both sides, Wherever You Are being the last single that I released before, like it was only ever a digital single. It's not going to get included with a collection. I may do that as side A and side B, as like let that be the B side to Learning to Sleep as a single on the way to all of the stuff. So like, and with that, I think that like their marketing said that they can take that product and turn it around, like manufacture it and get it shipped within 15 days of a customer ordering it. That's wild, because like everything else before this period of time is like, if you wanted to do a CD, like to get a decent price point on it, you have to order 1,000 CDs. Like on vinyl, I think the first price point is like 500 LPs manufactured. But man, that's expensive. That's a lot of printing. Printing's expensive.
That's having to take out a loan and having startup money, and that's something most people don't have.
So like looking at all that stuff and just the opportunities for it, like, yeah. And like what's beautiful is like, maybe we're kind of past the days of like you could become a superstar, releasing your music. And certainly I'm past the age of being young and cute and like I'm going to make my way to the cover of teen magazines. Not that was ever going to happen because I was an unfortunate looking young person too. But like I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe like if there's any more big stuff to do, it's probably going to come in the shape of like being hired by an artist that's well established. Something like an opportunity to play with Sammy Hagar certainly puts me on the radar of hopefully some other big acts that like when they need to trust a guitar player with a big tour, that my name is on the Rolodex for that stuff. So probably for the big stuff, it's that. But everything is Madison Square Garden for sure. But the rest of it is really just kind of curating and cultivating our own communities online. I have a wonderful community of people that have been following me on social media since the MySpace days. And really the only reason I got interested in social media was for promoting music as an independent artist. And like it's wonderful that, my family's on there and people I grew up with are on there. So I'm keeping up with friends and use it like everybody else uses social media as well. But for the most part, like I really did not get interested in spending a lot of time on it. I'm not a TV guy. I'm not a content consumer guy by nature. Other than listening to music and maybe watching movies, but big stuff, But it's really been a beautiful community of people that they've stayed with me on this journey, that they're interested in my music. They're interested in the trajectory of my career and the drama and they're there to celebrate the victories. And when things go sour, like they're there to, put an arm around my shoulder and be like, hey man, like this is a bummer, but we believe in you. Get up. So it's really beautiful. So it's got me thinking differently about my career now. Not that it wasn't so much just me before, but you put a few more miles behind you, and like you do realize how much more intrinsically connected we are to our audience, because your audience isn't just fans. Like the Beatles had fans. Sleep Token has fans. I have people that really like my music, and like maybe they'll say that they're fans, but they're not following me at the airport, or like I can't leave my hotel. Like fans, fanatics, like I don't have that. What I do have is a wonderful conglomeration of just the most amazing people from all walks of life who are on their own human journeys, that they like my music, and they like me, and it's become a part of their life in some of the most remarkable ways that I couldn't have possibly expected or anticipated. And like I think my career for the rest of the years that I am privileged to get back on this horse and live out my days as an artist, is also spending a life with these people that they're living their lives and they're on their journey too, and just sharing that in a way. Like that's what's coming up. Hopefully more tours, more music, more everything, and whatever crazy ways I end up trying to release this stuff to just, the commerce side of this is what I'm terrible at, because I'm like most independent artists. Like at this particular moment, like I'm the record label, I'm the artist, I'm the manager, I'm the accountant, I'm the lawyer, I'm the booking agent, I'm the producer, I'm the studio lackey, I'm the hired gun, I'm the mix engineer, I'm the guitar tech. So like when strings need to be changed, it's like I don't have time to change strings right now. But I don't have the budget to even put off a little bit of that work now. So like it's a very homegrown thing, and I'm looking at ways. I'm talking with my family about growing my business to a scale where I can invite members of my family specifically to help me with the businesses. Like now it's a family business, and I can get to a place where I can hire people, because every artist and every musician, every band, everybody who starts a business of any kind, you start a mini economy. People depend on you to keep the lights on so that they can show up for work and they can pay their bills too. And that's a part of the thing too. Like just being humble and realistic about how beautiful to be able to do that, hopefully, and make music along the way, like just with a guitar in my hands. Like my dad's a military guy, and he kind of expected me to be a military guy growing up, because just boy in the family, so we're going to grow you up to be a man, son. And music was just more of my thing. And what's great is like my dad has had the opportunity to see me do what I love to do, and I get to see the world with a guitar around my neck, not doing military things, but like I found my own way to see the world and do it with work. And it's really wonderful to like share stories of places that I've been to, places that he's been to. It's a completely different experience, but like there's so much logistics in executing a tour at any level of it. It kind of needs a level of military precision, so there's discipline involved in all this stuff. It's just great. It's just really great, putting all of that stuff together and making a life out of it and making it work in a realistic way, because I would say without a doubt, and this is probably a good parting idea for everything we've talked about. Whether you're an artist or you're wanting to be a hired gun or a session player or start your own band or whatever you're thinking about doing, very little in this life has broken my heart like my own expectations. In everything. My expectations of my family, my expectations of my friends, my expectations of how my career is going to grow, my expectations of how my romantic partners are going to react to whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm not doing. All of that stuff that's really hard. You do things it's impossible not to have some expectations. But that awareness that expectations can really break your heart. There's a really good acronym for, oh man, I forget it, and I won't bother to look it up for you, but I'll try to post it on my social media platform. There's a really great acronym I learned years ago that I try to hold on to, that it kind of puts a bow on that thing of like, whatever you're doing, just being aware of your expectations, and, you know, let your expectations inform your principles, but absolutely let your principles inform your decisions, not your expectations. Everything we're doing, we're hoping for the best, you know. But if you do everything from a position of principle, whatever that is, but hopefully it's being a good person to the best of your ability and being a compassionate, graceful person for everyone else that comes into your purview, even when things don't go the way that you want them to. It's going to hurt. You know, it may be heartbreaking, but at least you can walk away from a thing and be like, but I feel solid. Like, I know I didn't prostitute myself. I didn't accept a deal that I didn't want to accept. I didn't do a thing or treat a person a way that is contrary to my principles to get into a better position for myself. I mitigated my selfishness and my ego, you know, and tried to just, because we all have that stuff, and man, like it wants to get in the way. Like that's a constant wolf that we got to keep him in the pen for lots of different things. Even if you feel justified to like, no, we're letting him out. Like he's going to go eat that dude's face. Like if your principle is we don't do that, keeping that in mind is a really important thing. Because you'll always be able to at least keep your head held high. Like I deal with a lot of shame stuff and self-flagellation over guilt because, you know, we make mistakes constantly, and it seems like I am painfully aware of every transgression I have made throughout my entire life. Like I can think of something from a couple of months ago that hurt somebody that I love that I did, or something awkward that I said in third grade in class that made everybody laugh at me, and like any of those things I could ruminate over, you know, but being aware of, you know, wanting to be a good person, keeping your heart in the right place, you know, being in a position of service to family, friends, loved ones, artists that you're working for in every walk of life. Like I'm trying not to, it's a really weird place to be. Like a lot of people go to an office job and then they clock out at 5 o'clock and they get to go home, you know, and then they get to be dad or they get to be mom or whatever their home life is like. And as an artist, I don't know any artist that has a time card to punch out. You know, you leave your office with all of your humanity and all of your mess. You can't put it under a carpet. You can't hide it in a closet. Like, your wife is going to know that you're a mess and that you're defensive and that you're angry and that you're surly and you know, hopefully she's going to be graceful with you, but more often than not, however she handles it, she's going to let you know, hey man, you need to get on the right side of that. And that's really hard because it's your job to be emotional and explore these things. And, you know, identifying as like, I'm an artist. Well, that is a really important thing to say, but also I'm a human being. And being an artist is a really big, important part of like my self-discovery and my self-awareness and my engagement with the world, but I'm a human being first. And whatever my struggles are with, again, transgressions and things that I've made mistakes with people that I've worked with, or romantic partners or family members and friends and things like that, keeping that in mind is that's the goal. Like whatever I make a mistake on, well, that's a human thing to make mistakes. But if the allegory and the ambition and the expectation is beyond the expectation, the principle is to be a good human being to the best of your ability, to where, you know, to be the light in the world that you need for yourself. You know, if you struggle like I do with like sometimes just feeling cut off and feel like there's not a lot of grace or compassion for you, being aware that you're worthy of that. And when you are worthy of that, and you go, well, everybody's worthy of that. then it becomes a principle of I'm going to do my best to always lead with that. And I fail at it constantly. I'm failing at it currently, but I'm working at it because people that I love very much, are worthy of me doing the work to be better at being a human being and giving them the compassion that not only that they deserve, but I deserve. And it's funny how what it really is a truth in the universe. Like what you put out into the world is more of a reflection of what you are in the world and how it comes back to you. So if you go out with a lot of defensiveness and depression and stuff like that, it's real easy to get addicted to that kind of mentality. But if you can stay on the side of gratitude and grace and compassion in spite of all of those things, and not even in spite, but largely because of those things, if you recognize how pitiful of a human being you are, then you can actually put yourself in a position where well, now I can be at service of other people. Because there is no station in life where I'm above anybody at all. I don't deserve to sit at the head of the table. Maybe I need to be more like Jesus and wash everybody's feet. Maybe I need to be at that level of service, and arguably as a Christian, probably so. But in every manner of speaking, just offering that, and I treat my students with the same deference because they're on a journey with all that stuff. Artists with that deference, I try my best with all of that stuff, and you fail at it because nobody knows where your goat is tied up like your brother. And he can piss you off like nothing else. And I forget all of this, Buddhist Zen stuff real quick when it's my older brother getting down on me, So anyway, that's the thing, all of that.
Well, thanks again for coming on. This has been great. It's been a long time since we had a chance to visit. So I think it's been 7 years, I think, since the last time we saw each other. So.
Yeah, I think the last run that we did was that 2017 or 2018?
I think it was, I'm trying to think, it's probably 2018, because I think my grandson had just been born.
Yes. Yeah, well, we got to do that again. I haven't seen Dixie since, we put out that Tragedy Strategy record. I guess it's been if it's not quite a year, it's about a year now since that record is out. It's a great record, and we haven't had a chance to do anything to support it. Dixie's always doing his solo looping thing, so he's been back and forth to Wisconsin. So we got to get back on the board.
We all got to get back together and do that again. All right. Well, Mike, again, thanks for coming on. We'll have to have you back. I know me and you could talk for hours.
Anytime, man.
So,
anytime. I enjoy it.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in for the double episode. Remember, subscribe, do all that stuff. We want to know how we're doing. Get us some feedback. Everybody, have fun, stay safe, and we'll catch you later.
Absolutely. Cheers, y'all.